The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Daren, Jaime, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough as well as across New York City. Coming up on today's show, we go front and center discussing January being National Blood Donor Month. We'll discuss the shortage of donated blood and what you can actually do to be of assistance. Then afterwards, we'll talk about how the Salvation Army of Greater New York is supporting the families affected by the recent Tremont Bronx fire. And then we'll learn about how an AARP policy guide filled with recommendations will improve life for elderly residents. And then also we'll discuss how one company is offering contactless parking to motivate workers back to the office. And then finally, we'll talk with an attorney on how they use software to assist clients preparing for uncontested divorces. So we encourage you to stay tuned because all of this and much more is heading your way. Right now, we're officially open. Hello, everyone. I'm Daren, Jaime, and welcome to Open. Today is Wednesday, January 26th, and you're watching Open, a live and interactive program that brings the Bronx to New York City straight to you. We also want to welcome our viewers on Manhattan Neighborhood Network as Open is being broadcast live simultaneously on the MNN channel. Now, you can stay connected to us on our website at bronxnet.org and, of course, on all of our social media platforms at BronxNet TV. Well, some things have been going on through the course of the past week, and we'll take you a couple of them with our Bronx updates. Well, a new COVID-19 rapid testing site is coming to the Bronx. It's now the second available in the 16th district. Our BronxNet reporter, Arlie Makoko, gives us the details.
In a neighborhood that's among the hardest hit citywide by the new surge in COVID-19 cases, Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson was joined by New York City Councilmember Althea Stevens in Highbridge to welcome a new COVID-19 rapid testing site, now the second available in the 16th district.
My office was really taken aback when we found out that we only had one testing site in the district and it wasn't in the west part of the Bronx. So we've been working really closely with testing and tracing and helping hospitals to identify places further west in the Bronx to make sure we had testing sites.
Stepping up to the plate to help address the neighborhood's 46% COVID-19 infection rate is Bridge Builders, located here on the corner of Ogden Avenue and West 164th Street, where lines continued steady despite the rain.
What we're seeing is that people that have tested positive immediately start calling the member of their house to come down and get tested.
I'm just really excited that we were able to work with health and hospitals, test and tracing to make this happen. And hopefully in the next coming weeks, we'll have several more sites in this part of the Bronx.
There are other areas as well where rates are above 40%. Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson is working to bring rapid test sites to these areas as well so that Bronxites can easily access them.
We're monitoring these numbers. We're getting data from the Department of Health on a frequent basis, and we're going to work with a lot of the stakeholders in those particular communities, the merchants associations, the bids, the churches, the faith-based organizations, the CBOs like Bridge Builders, and make sure that they have the capacity to accept being a testing site. We're going to expand on mobile sites as well through the health department and through a lot of other channels like Yankee Stadium as a large distribution site. We need to encourage testing, and we know that as more people get tested, there will be more cases of positivity. We're seeing more hospitalization rates as well throughout the state of New York. and certainly in the city of New York.
Grateful for the convenience of this location providing quick results is Highbridge resident Desiree Nelson.
Everybody braved the rain because everybody wants the same thing. Everybody wants to be negative.
To find out where to get a rapid test in your neighborhood, just dial 311. In Highbridge, Arlene Makoko for BronxNet.
And that's all the time we have for our Bronx updates. If you want to find out what's happening here in the borough, of course, tune in to the Wednesday Open where we bring you these Bronx updates. Well, we'll be back with more Open coming up right after this. January is National Blood Donor Month, and the New York Blood Center continues to call for more donors as the shortage of blood continues to extend. Now, the region's blood supply continues to be threatened by low donor turnout, as well as the blood drive cancellations due to surging levels of Omicron cases, as well as seasonal challenges. Here now sharing more details is the Senior Executive Director and Donor Recruitment and Marketing at New York Blood Center. We're pleased to have Andrea H. Cefarelli. And Andrea, I know that this is a critical time for you as we are trying to navigate this, but give us the depth of how challenging it is really for your organization.
Well, we've had a chronic shortage of blood since the start of the pandemic, but the reasons have been evolving as the pandemic has been evolving. So there are several factors. First and foremost, we used to collect 75,000 blood donations from high school and college students each year. And that influx of first-time donors was really important. Early in the pandemic, it was remote learning. Then we thought we'd get back to normal. Then it was blended learning. Of those high schools and colleges have not come back. Then you have people working from home. So corporations that used to host blood drives just aren't. They don't have the workforce in the office environment. And it's much different for people to leave working from home, go find a blood drive, donate, and then come back. So the convenience factor has changed. Then you throw in, the increase in Omicron variant, and we came out of the December holidays into the first of the year, and blood drives that were confirmed, ready to go, started just canceling left and right. And donors who had made appointments were not showing up, probably because they're on quarantine or they got sick. So it's kind of a triple whammy.
Yeah. So how do you counter this, given the fact that you have these challenges all the way from education to the workplace, people just not really being out? And then again, a lot of people still skeptical, given the fact that we've got so many things going on.
Sure. Well, we try everything. We're extremely creative, innovative, and we're probably doing something new every week to week. So December, surprisingly, was the best collection month in 4 years. It just wasn't enough. So we collected in New York and New Jersey about 29,000 life-saving blood donations. So people are coming out. The problem is there's a lot of pent-up demand for the hospitals. So the hospitals need more, like 32 or 33,000. And so it's that gap between the number of life-saving blood donations that we're getting and what we actually need. So partners like you today are tremendous, getting the word out. So we've seen an increase in blood donations for about 10 days. It's whether it will be sustained. Very often after we see an increase, we then see 3 weeks of a decrease. So we just sort of pack them into a couple weeks. But our hope is it will keep the message out there and make it through the difficult winter months.
So Andrea, if there's an organization out there, maybe an individual out there that says, listen, I understand the plight, they really are sensitive to your need, how do they go about setting up a blood drive? Is it a real complicated process?
We try and make it as simple as possible. We partner you with an account manager who helps you from the idea stage to the execution. So if you have a location, so a lot of places don't want to let outsiders in, so you start with a location, the bigger the better, because we've started to set up our blood drives with more social distancing between the chairs, between the beds, between the people. Then who are the donors in the area? We have email addresses and phone numbers for donors by geography. So you might have your own members, your own parishioners, your own employees, but we also, if you're willing to let us, will invite donors in the area. And that's what's changed in the pandemic. Giving blood used to be as easy as walking down the hallway at your place of work, or after faith-based services, you just pop into the blood drive or get out of chemistry or physics and go donate. And so having convenient places in the community for people to give blood is super important. So we help you every step of the way.
The challenge, when you have a lack of blood, for somebody who may not really understand the fullness of it, give us a little bit about how this really impacts the process going forward. When we talk about critical emergencies, we here in the Bronx, we just recently had, a gas explosion and, the Tremont fire. Talk about the work and where this blood actually goes to and how this is really impactful in the lives of so many people.
Yeah, so first, the Bronx fire that killed so many, in that particular instance, we weren't asked for blood for those patients because the majority of those injuries were lung injuries. But burn victims in particular can use a significant amount of blood and plasma over the course of their healing. Red cells and platelets can go to cancer and leukemia patients. They can be for routine or trauma, routine surgeries or traumas. And so having an ample blood supply before an emergency or before a trauma is what's needed. So it needs to be at the hospital, ready for any emergency or surgery, versus, calling the blood center where you have a little bit of delay where someone comes in. You don't ever want to have a delay. You want the blood donated, tested, and at the hospital ready for patients.
What would you tell people who have, needle hesitation? We know a lot that's been said about the vaccine, and some people have had this aversion to getting the vaccine simply because they're just, dealing with the process of needles. And other people have other thoughts as well. But I've heard people say, just the whole needle process is not something I want to experience. But we know when it comes to blood donation, that's exactly what happens. But give a little walkthrough as to what that process is like when a person is actually donating blood, so that maybe we can debunk some of the myths and the theories here.
Well, I would say it two ways. To my young children that both have tattoos, and to my nieces and nephew that think nothing of piercing their belly button and their ears 6 times. So to anyone that has a piercing or a tattoo, I say it's no different. And we do that because, it's fun or we want to look good, and we endure that. I think tattoos are probably pretty painful, but we do that because it's part of our culture. So the first, I would say, no worse and way easier than a tattoo or a piercing. If I can't claim you have a tattoo or a piercing, then I would say it's a tiny bit of discomfort to save the life of someone that you will never meet. I've stood with first-time donors over my years with the blood center, and 99% of them go, wow, that was way easier than I thought. Small bit of discomfort when the needle goes in, then you don't feel it. 11 minutes later, you've donated something that cannot be manufactured, that's going to go to someone special that doesn't really ever get to say thank you. So it's a pretty amazing gift.
Before we leave, I would love for you to just share a little bit about the success stories of how donations have actually impacted lives.
So we have blood recipients all over our website, from rare blood users. So there are people, if you have chronic sickle cell or thalassemia, you don't just need one blood donation, you need donations throughout your whole life. And you can start needing, say I'm O positive and I need O positive blood. The more you get blood over your lifetime, you might need very specific blood. And we have a couple blood recipients on our website that are kept alive by donors with rare antigens and specialty blood. And those are just amazing stories. We also had an individual who was actually a board member, and he was dropping his kids off for school, went around to the back of the car to get their knapsacks, and a cab came from behind and hit him in his leg. So he's a double amputee. He was amazing. We introduced him to his actual blood donors a couple years ago, and his story is also on the website. So these are those rare stories where the blood recipient and the blood donor actually get to connect, and it's a really special thing.
Yeah, amazing story and much needed, especially during a time like this. And I know that you're in a shortage, but we know that this is the month that we're actually trying to create some awareness. So, Andrea, I want to thank you for being with us, and hopefully we'll be able to see more people donate blood throughout the course of this month and hitherto, so that maybe we can be able to be in a better place and impact more lives. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for covering it. You guys are lifesavers as well for getting the message out.
Well, thank you. We want people to know, listen, if you want more information, please go ahead and visit their website at nybc.org. And then also follow them on Facebook and Instagram, I should say, at New York Blood Center. Well, we don't want you to go anywhere. We got more show coming up, so stay with us. Open continues coming up in a few. And welcome back. In the wake of the recent fire in Tremont that left 19 dead, the Salvation Army of New York's division has set up a Bronx Fire Relief Fund and is encouraging now the community to give support to those families that have been impacted by the fire. Joining us now to share more details, we have the General Secretary at the Salvation Army Greater New York Division, Major Kevin Stoops. And Major Stoops, glad to have you, and thank you for the work that's going on, because you guys have been deeply embedded since that fire happened in the Tremont section. Why don't you take us into a little bit about the Salvation Army's response in the wake of this fire?
Yeah, Daren, it's good to be with you today, and it's good to be able to tell you what the Salvation Army has been doing right from day one. We have a Salvation Army unit, a local unit, right in the Tremont section of the Bronx. And our local leaders responded immediately to see what would be needed for the families who are impacted. And not only that, but then our emergency services response team became involved with New York City Emergency Management, with all the volunteer organizations who are active in disaster. It's called VOAD. We are the co-chair of that organization. And we became part of the service center that was set up so that affected families would come into that center, and every agency that could bring assistance to them was present in one place. And so we were part of that service center for 7 days following the fire to provide assistance where it was needed. Now, Daren, you would understand that a fire brings two levels of assistance that are needed for families. The first one is short-term, and then the next one is long-term. And for the short-term, the Salvation Army's area of expertise really is in donation management and in clothing replacement. You would understand that when you run out of a fire, you leave everything behind. And so here we are in the middle of winter, and the families really quickly were in need of clothing replacement. And that's where the Salvation Army became involved. Donations that were received, financial donations, quickly became turned into certificates for families to go to local stores to replace clothing. In addition, we became the manager of any in-kind donations that came in. Now that can be a real logistical nightmare, as you would understand. And so we did that for all the organizations that did clothing drives and other kind of drives. We took care of their donations. So currently that short-term approach is just about finished up, but boy, the long-term thing will continue on for a long time.
And talking about long-term, I know that some of your sites have been destinations for those displaced families. Share with us a little bit about that. How can families actually who've been affected by this have an opportunity to connect with your sites to be able to receive services?
Yeah, one of the great strengths of the Salvation Army is that we're locally located. We are community-based. We have brick and mortar buildings, both in the Tremont section of the Bronx and over by the Yankee Stadium section of the Bronx. So families that were impacted, there are still 35 apartments that are vacated. People are not allowed to return to them because they're seen as unsafe. And so that's a lot of families. And so long-term, that unit becomes a place where a family can go and say, hey, listen, we're being able to relocate to a new apartment. We just need some assistance. And the Salvation Army then can bring its resources to bear to help a family navigate into their new place of residence. One of the real key things in this one is the level of grief and the level of trauma that was experienced. And so the Salvation Army is part of the state's response, as well as the Bronx's response to long-term counseling and long-term case management. And those are called unmet needs groups, unmet needs roundtables, what we are part of there. And the Salvation Army is one of the leading organizations to help provide emotional and spiritual care for families impacted, case management to help guide them through the red tape that it can exist for any kind of services that a family would need coming out of such a disaster. What a privilege it is to come alongside families who are impacted in this way. It's a part of the Salvation Army mission, and it's a real joy to be part of that on behalf of the families that are impacted.
So when we talk about this particular fire, I know I've been at BronxNet and covering news for more than close to 25 years. And when we look at this, I've never seen anything of this devastation. From your perspective, one who's got boots on the ground and does a lot of work in the relief area, give me the measure of impact in terms of, have you seen something like this before in the work that you've done?
Yeah, and when it comes to a fire, it's been a long time since we've experienced such devastation with a fire. Now, you would know that recently, with even the impact of Hurricane Ida this summer, we saw some real water damage to people's homes up in Mamaroneck and other locations. All the way back maybe to Hurricane Sandy is probably when we think of local and the amount of impact, wide range. This one in the Bronx neighborhood, especially for families, really cultural families from Gambia and who are Muslim, and really tight-knit group in there. We haven't seen anything like this in a long time. And fortunately, our emergency services team is real veterans at being able to ignite resources and ignite response, and really be compassionate in their coming alongside families that are experiencing great trauma. There's nothing, probably, when you think of what can raise fear in your life, a fire probably ranks right up there, number one or number two, is fear-inducing. And so being able to come alongside of people who are afraid and bring confidence and strength and knowledge gives people great assurance that they're in good hands, that the future is bright. And that's really what the Salvation Army is doing right now.
Yeah. Salvation Army opened its first Bronx location in 1890. And then when you got to the Salvation Army in Tremont section of the Bronx, that was 1893. Share with me what you've heard from those who've been working with boots on the ground with these families. What's their experience like, and what have they been able to relay back to you?
Yeah, one of the real strengths of the Salvation Army is it's been around for a long time. You can count on your Salvation Army in your neighborhood because it's been there. By the way, Daren, I wasn't around in 1893 when we opened, in case anyone was a little concerned about my longevity here.
Look, neither was I. Let me throw that out. Let me throw mine in there too. Neither was I, right?
That's right, exactly. But we have pretty good history about being there in the Bronx. What a great legacy for us as the Salvation Army to be in such a neighborhood for over 130 years. Currently Captains Siriaco, Roberto, and Luz Siriaco are our local leaders at the Bronx Tremont Salvation Army. And from day one, they have been present. They attended the vigil that was held immediately following the fire with local leaders and local clergy groups and local organizations. They have physically been present every single day at the service center, being able to have conversations with families and able to assist them with their immediate needs. And this will continue. The people Salvation Army in the Bronx, and they can have a conversation with captains there, Captain Siriaco, about their long-term needs. And what a assuring thing it is for those families to know that the Salvation Army didn't just fly in, do a little bit of stuff, and then leave, but we're actually there for the long term. And so that's what we want to be, and that's what we're going to do. So long term, when it comes to relocation, when it comes to furniture replacement, when it comes to assistance in providing support in a counseling point of view or case management, the Salvation Army will be present until the last need is met. And that's a great confidence builder for that community and for the people involved.
Yeah, I want to thank you so much for the work that's being done. Certainly when we talk, usually it's on a much happier note. But this time in particular, the needs of so many who've been affected by this horrific fire. And I want to thank you and the Salvation Army for what you're doing to make people's lives better. Thanks a lot, Major Kevin Stoops.
Thank you, Daren. Appreciate it. Good to talk to you again.
Good to talk to you. Hopefully we'll talk on a much better note next time. And listen, I want to let you know if you want more information about the Salvation Army, definitely encourage you visit their website at salvationarmyny.org, and then also on the social media platforms at Salvation Army NY. Encourage you, please don't go anywhere. We do have more show coming up. Open continues coming up in a few. Welcome back. AARP released a groundbreaking policy guide filled with recommendations to help city officials address vital issues that older residents actually face. Now, the policy book underscores the New York City Department for the Aging receives less than 1% of the city's budget when 20% of New York City residents are age 65 and older. Joining us now and sharing more details, we're pleased to have the State Director of the AARP, New York State, Beth Finkel. And Beth, glad to have you with us. And as we look at this, it gives us a more in-depth look, as we say, at some of the issues that the community's older residents, I should say, actually face.
Exactly right. We wanted to look at 50 plus and how they're feeling about living in New York right now. And we have surveyed them repeatedly. And from what we've heard from them and from what our policy experts have hammered out, we came up with a blueprint for action for 50 plus. So this is really the bigger line here is really, what do 50 plus deserve? And I would say that very strongly, because after all, who built this city? It was the 50 plus. It is continuing to be the 50 plus. They are, a strong workforce here in New York and supporting families and communities and paying their taxes, etc. And second of all, they are the biggest voting bloc. Every election for the last God knows how many years has been decided by the 50 plus. On big election years and on off election years, who goes to the polls? It's the 50 plus. And finally, when you think about civic engagement, who's the human capital that drives all of our not-for-profits? Who's in there volunteering all the time? At the Ys, at community houses, at churches, at synagogues, etc.
So when we talk about the 50 plus, you know that they're very integral to New York State. You developed this book, you took a look at some of the things that residents need and want to see. Give us a little insight as to what you're able to uncover.
I think the number one is ageism and how ageism is just, it permeates every part of our society. And we have to once and for all say, enough is enough. We're not going to tolerate ageism anymore. And you see it in TV commercials, you see it in people's offhanded comments, and you particularly see it in the workplace and age discrimination in the workplace. New York City passed 5 really nice age discrimination bills last year. We need to take that a step further. We need to see how they are actually regulated, how they come into how they actually work. And then the second part of that is we need to look again systemically. AARP believes we need a deputy mayor for aging. As you said, 65 plus make up 20% of New York City's population. And we need someone tying together all the different departments that just literally don't talk to each other enough about what the 50 plus need and what they deserve. And that's what we're hoping for. On top of that, when we look at ageism, we also feel like just the name, the New York City Department for the Aging. I mean, I ask you, is that like, you know, a handy dandy title that you just can't wait to pick up the phone or look up online? You know, so we need to bring that name into the 21st century, because that's a really archaic name.
Yeah, and there's a lot of connotation that goes with that. So people don't necessarily feel so comfortable picking up the phone and calling the helpline. I know if I did, I wouldn't quite want to do that myself. Call the Department of the Aging. I think that speaks to how I would feel. Yeah. So, but looking at this demographic of people 50 plus, looking at those who are 65 and up in New York State, in terms of laws and in terms of policies and procedures. Talk to me about really having that voice, because you talk about having somebody in that office, but many times when you're trying to articulate that voice, you become voiceless, because it seems as though that nobody's listening when it comes to the issues that are so prevalent to this demographic.
I think that's true. And I just want to be clear. So this book, this Blueprint for Action, is actually New York City policy. And I'm glad you brought up the state piece, because we are fastly working to pull together the same book for the state level. So I'm going to have a whole other slew of policy recommendations. I hope you'll have me back to talk about that one day. But on this one, we're also looking at transportation. You know, I don't have to tell you in the Bronx how difficult transportation is, all those elevated train stations, how many of them have escalators or have elevators, and what does that mean, not just to the 50 plus, but also to the disabled, right? How are they supposed to access our transit system? It doesn't seem quite right. And also, it's particularly harmful in communities of color, where they are even more likely to not have stations that have access. So that's another area. Affordable housing. Over 50% of the people that we surveyed in New York City are concerned about affordable housing, and we know it, and I know you must hear it all the time on your show. We're also very concerned about livability, just in general livability in our communities, and we're very concerned about the economy. Over 90% of the people we surveyed that are 50 plus in New York have told us that they are worried of being able to save for their retirement. 90%. I mean, that's a staggering number.
Yeah. And when you hear those numbers, obviously a lot of concern, because one wants to know, how am I going to make it? How am I going to be able to navigate it in the future? The question is, what kind of response have you received since putting this information out?
Well, I think we've gotten quite a bit. We're setting up meetings with all of the city council members. We've already sent them the book. We've sent it to the mayor's office, sent it to Adrian Adams. So the next step is to sit down one-on-one, go through it, get some feedback. You know, advocacy is a two-way process. It's not just AARP saying, here's what we want, give it to us. It's sitting down and saying, okay, here's what we're thinking. What do you think? What can we get done? What can we get done in the immediate? What can we get done, on a staggered scale? But the bottom line is what the 50 plus New Yorkers deserve. We need to keep them here in New York. A lot of New Yorkers have been leaving. We know that the numbers are big. We've already lost a congressional seat in New York State. We need to keep them here. We need to keep their pensions here. We need to keep their Social Security here. Otherwise, they will take it to other states that I would rather not name on this show.
Yeah, 32% more of New Yorkers who have moved out since last year. Normally, there's a rate of people who actually leave, and we see 32% more in the last year of people who are actually exiting New York. A lot of people say that could be attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic, but give me a quick estimation from your perspective as to how COVID-19 has really impacted the demographic of 50 plus and moving forward.
Well, it certainly affected them, number one, in employment. Number two, we didn't even talk about broadband, right? We didn't talk about how people have access to the internet in these times, how they live without it, both for your children and your grandchildren and for your work and for your continuing education. And again, particularly affecting communities of color. So AARP has been working really hard on that. You may know Governor Hochul just put a lot more money into the budget, $1 billion to help with internet access. So we are really pleased about that. Nursing homes, long-term care facilities. We're very worried about that. We had great laws passed last year at the state level, and Governor Hochul signed them. We were very pleased, but the problem now is that they're saying because of COVID, they're not going to put them into effect. Well, we need staffing ratios. We need protection for our nursing home residents. 15,000 New Yorkers died during COVID in nursing homes in the past 2 years. We can't tolerate that. This is not the time to roll back. So we also need more money in oversight in nursing homes and long-term care facilities, New York State long-term care for people to go into nursing homes and long-term care facilities and advocate for people who might not be getting the treatment that they need, might not be getting fed, might not be getting moved or changed, or all of those other, activities of daily living that put people in jeopardy. And when your family and friends can't come to visit you, who's looking out for you? Who's speaking up for you? So we really need more money in for long-term care ombudsman. And I'm sorry to say I didn't see it in the budget announced yesterday from the state. We got to change that. We cannot tolerate that. We got a lot of money coming into New York. The governor told us that. Let's take care of long-term care ombudsman.
Yeah. Well, we're going to see how things work out. Of course, the governor releasing her information, and certainly that's a lot to unpack. And can't unpack it here in this segment, but got to bring you back when we talk a little bit more about the state and also services as well. But Beth, thank you so much for sharing with us, and great work with those who are in the 50 plus category.
Thank you, Daren. Really a pleasure. Thank you for letting us share this information.
Glad to. Well, want to let you know if you want more information, please go ahead and visit their website at aarp.org, and then also on social media at AARPNY. We encourage you, please don't go anywhere. We still got more show coming up. Open continues right after this.
We built a media network for you.
BronxNet TV.
Come learn in your new state-of-the-art studios at Lehman College.
At Mercy College.
And coming soon to the South Bronx in the Hub.
Inspire with your stories, culture, history.
Your Bronx on BronxNet.
Engage with us.
Connect with us at your channels and at BronxNet.tv.
Learn, engage, inspire. BronxNet TV.
From the Bronx
to the world.
BronxNet.
And welcome back to the show. Spaces is a company that's actually transforming how drivers consume parking and the way technology actually partners with the industry by connecting the physical and digital environment through the latest in contactless parking solutions. What exactly does all this mean? Well, we're pleased to be joined by Executive Chairman of Spaces, Jerry Skillett, and Jerry shares with us. And Jerry, I guess if you're an employer, this is one way that you can kind of get your employees back into the workplace?
Well, absolutely. What we did is we made parking access and parking just so much easier by using your mobile device. And actually, you don't even have to download an app because we use the actual mobile phone aspect of it. But what's so great for employers is that we set up this program called Hybrid Park, so that employees that don't come in every single day have the ability to access their parking facilities on a daily basis, pay a special rate, but have in and out privileges during that day. So we find, Daren, that with the new schedules, people have to go, they're picking up their children, they're coming in at different hours. There's, these hybrid schedules. And so it's really changed a lot. There's not everyone's coming to the office every day anymore. So we really help facilitate that.
Yeah. Do you see this as a permanent fix or a fix?
Well, it's, I've traveled, we're in 23 cities across the country. And I talked to the CEOs of some of the most major tenants and real estate companies in the United States. The hybrid schedule is permanent. I do believe that what you're going to see is that where the schedules today may be 2 or 3 days in the office, it'll probably be 3 or 4 in the future. But I think that the days of 5 days in the office from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. in most companies, we won't see that again.
Yeah, it's amazing how things just change in a matter of time. But we've actually moved into a new dimension. As as many people say, a new era. But I know for myself, if I'm going to a mall, if I'm going even to an office building for a meeting, some of the biggest frustration is really just standing there waiting and dealing with how to deal with parking and things of that nature. And I know that, that's your job. You kind of like mitigated some of that. So talk to us about a little bit of the response that you've received since being able to take this on.
Well, it's been amazing. I think the differentiator was in parking, it's very difficult in a gated parking facility specifically to create something that you have to download an app. So we're app-less, you're native on every phone. When you come up to the gate, there's an actual specific phone number you dial to access the parking facility. It's automatic. There is a text message that comes back to set up your payment platform. You do that one time. And when you go to the exit, you dial out. It's very efficient. It's obviously contactless. And you do it from inside the car. You don't wait in line at a pay station. You don't dip your credit card at the exit or anything like that. So the efficiency of it is amazing. We have over 17,000 customers a day that use the system. And it's exponentially growing across the country. And so we believe clearly that this is the way that people will access parking across the United States in the future. We believe 90% of the facilities will have this in the next 5 years.
Yeah. Were you inspired by this through COVID, or was this pre-COVID? You already had the mindset that this is the way that you want to go?
Well, it was pre-COVID when we started experimentation with this. I've been a leader in the industry for 40 years. I've owned most of the major parking companies in the United States. And so as an operational expert in the business, I found it very frustrating we created a very difficult process, and you just mentioned it, to enter, park, pay, exit. You almost have to be a PhD to figure it all out. And why not simplify it? We simplified it. When COVID hit, then people, the people were very interested in it primarily from the contactless basis. All of a sudden, all of us started really thinking a little bit more about, we don't like touching things. So we had already done it prior to that, but in a weird way, Daren, COVID accelerated our adoption. And like all of us, and even myself, when I go to Starbucks, when I go to Whole Foods, when I go to stores now, I almost always pay contactless. And I
Yeah.
never did that before. And so once you do it, that's the preferred way. And parking is the same. It's just so much easier.
I'll ask you the question, like, what response have you been getting? I mean, obviously for me, I'm a no-brainer. Look, I want that. That's exactly what I want, simply for a couple of reasons. Number one, we're in COVID. Number two, beyond COVID, I already had a frustration prior to this. So, I mean, for me, I know it's a no-brainer, but what response have you been getting from people?
Well, look, we with 17,000 customers a day, we hear a lot, but I want to tell you about our very first facility was Salesforce Tower in Indianapolis. And it was a very unusual location because it had Salesforce employees, which are all young. And then there's a doctor's office and attorney's office there that primarily have seniors. So you have to use our system in that garage. There's no other way to get customers. Was a woman who was 77 years old. And she called us after using it. And she said, thank you, thank you, thank you. I never could reach the ticket dispenser from inside the car. I never could, all of the things that we know are difficult. And she said, now I actually can do this, right? So it's simple. And you and I and everybody, we know how to dial a number on our phone. We learned when we were 7 years old. So it's very intuitive from that standpoint.
So where do you go from here? Obviously, I know you're growing, you're expanding by the day. What are the future plans?
Well, our future plans really, again, unexpected. This was a gift from God, actually. The cell phone is the same in every country in the world. Parking gates and access is the same everywhere in the world. And so we've made trips to Europe. We've made trips to South America. We've made trips to Asia. People, parking companies and garage owners around the world want to adopt this. And so that's our next frontier. Any place that there's a parking facility with a gate, we want spaces.
Well, then we're going to leave it there. Jerry, thank you so much. And it's really exciting to hear. I think a lot of people will be able to benefit from it. I know personally, myself, that's my mode de operandi. I like it like that. So thank you so much for being with us, and glad to talk to you.
Great. Thank you, Daren.
All right. Now, listen, if you want more information, what I want you to do is visit the website, spacesusa.com, or on their social media platform at spacesusa. And we encourage you, please don't go anywhere. We still have more open coming up right after this. Welcome back to the show. Our next guest is renowned for handling divorces and civil litigation, as well as bankruptcy and criminal defense cases, and much more. He's been driven by a central mission, which is offering affordable, high-quality legal services to those that otherwise may not be able to so afford it. His firm also uses proprietary software to assist clients preparing for uncontested divorces so that they can file at a low cost. We're pleased to be joined by with attorney Herb Cabrera. And Herb, good to have you.
Thank you for inviting us, Mr. Jaime.
Thank you. And so listen, to really get at it, I was taken not aback, but just interesting to find out that, divorce can be such a long, lengthy, and laborious process. But now there's the ability to have automated, uncontested divorces. And I thought that was quite interesting. So this is the way of the future, huh?
Absolutely. The future, we started this process. We had some software created for our firm back in 2005. So we've actually been doing it for about 16 years already. It's just that the public doesn't know about it. And our intent from the very beginning is to make it, as you indicated in your intro, to make it affordable for the public at large. When two people already have an agreement to divorce, why, and this is our motto, why should the lawyer stay with your money? If you guys already decided on who gets the children, who's going to get custody of the children, how much of the spousal support is going to be paid, and division of other property, why go through the painstaking process of a contested divorce in court where it's going to cost you tens and tens of thousands of dollars, And so we make it very, very affordable, and I'm proud of that, because there's no need otherwise for the people to get into such a costly endeavor.
Yeah. And so we know that it can be costly. We know that it can be time consuming. So how does one actually go through the process? Give us a little bit about how this works.
Yeah, so we created a web-based program so that people can actually log on to gonylaw.com, and you'll see there it has we provide a number of services. The ones that we're prominently focused on in that web page would be the uncontested divorces, corporations, as well as bankruptcies. People have financial worries as well, and so we make the process very easy for them. And again, very competitive pricing, because it's geared to the public, to the members of the public that don't have a lot of funds to pay on the lawyering process. So once you log on, it'll give you and the divorce, if you click onto divorces, it'll take you through an information page, and then you log on, and it'll ask you a series of about 6 or 8 questions to see if this is if you're a good candidate for an uncontested divorce. For example, who would not be a good candidate for this particular software? It would be for the people that you can't locate where your spouse lives, either your husband or your wife, because you have to serve them with papers. Or the people that have not reached an agreement with regard to custody of the children if they have children. People that have not reached an agreement with regard to the disposition of a house or home. So all those cases would have to go to court and have to be litigated in that forum. But for the people that have, as I indicated earlier, have already the mindset of, yes, my husband or my wife is in agreement, I have agreed to the terms of the divorce, let's reach an agreement, let's file the papers. Now, what makes it easy, and I should tell you this, Mr. Jaime, that when I started this process, I started practice back in 1984. I worked in the DA's office in Manhattan. Then I went into private practice years later. When I first started, I did my first uncontested divorce. It's a nightmare because there's a thick number of pages that you have to handle. And I'm telling you, even for the lawyers, it's just not cost effective. And so if you're just a member of the public, it's a daunting task to fill out all that documentation and then to follow up. Because what happens is, if you submit the paperwork on your own, inevitably, and I say 95 to 99% of the time, you're going to get a defect, means that you did something wrong and it's going to delay the whole process. But we take all that pain out. Think about it. I mean, what do I charge? $495 is my legal fee. And I have to prepare the paperwork. I have to review it. I have to file it in court. And if there's a defect, I have to go back there. That's why a lot of lawyers don't do it. And we deal with it because it's volume oriented.
When we talk about it, it's so many people out there who are going through divorce. We know that 50% of American households actually end up in divorce. And when it gets to the place of being uncontested, what are you seeing coming across your desk? Are you seeing more and more people go the uncontested route, or are they still toughing it out in the other court?
Yeah, I mean, they are. Everybody's reaching an agreement because they understand it. And I'm not making up this story. I know that people are going to say this is crazy. I actually met a lady who paid, get this, the case was pending, I asked her, in Long Island for just approximately 2 years. So I'm going to put you on the spot, Mr. Jaime. You tell me how much she wound up paying for this contested divorce with her husband. Give me a number. 2 years pending. It settled right before trial.
2 years pending, maybe what, $10,000?
That was very, very close. $240,000. 240 she paid. Yes. And she was happy about it. She was smiling because, they had assets, but it was $240,000, almost $250,000. And so it doesn't happen like that at that large scale in the inner city, but you still get people, that are paying $20,000, $30,000 on a divorce. And my mantra is, why do you do that? If you guys, I always tell people when they come here, to really resolve it between yourselves, because when there are children involved, and let's not lose sight of that, they pay a price, if the parents are bickering and fighting. So, while we don't mind divorcing people, we still have the human aspects of it, wanting people to get along. I mean, I'm a human being and a member of the human race. I don't want bickering. I want the children to grow up in a good home where they know their father, where they know their mother, when they can partake of that relationship. We just make the process easier for them, so.
And so, well, give us this real shortly. What advice do you have for people who may definitely be close to having that uncontested divorce, but still is fighting it out between both sides? What advice would you give?
Well, number one, they should, and I'm going to self-promote here if you don't mind, but they should call me at 718-439-3600. I'm a city kid. I grew up in Brooklyn. I got a neighborhood practice, and I'm so excited to be able to service. Because don't forget, I mean, the bottom line is we all need to make a living, including myself, obviously. But I don't like making a living on the backs of my clients. They leave here exceedingly happy. Think about it. As I indicated earlier, all I make is $495. That's good enough for lunch and dinner, depending on where you go, and that's about it. But we're volume oriented. I tell the people, look, reach out to me, because they say, oh, I don't know. And I always encourage them to talk to the other side, try to work out their differences, and inevitably because once you tell them, look, you're going to wind up paying $10,000-$20,000 on this divorce, then they come to the table and say, let's see if we can work it out. And I always counsel them, it doesn't have to be to me. Go to the lawyer that you do trust and try to work it out. Just make sure that if you have everything worked out, don't get into the uncontested realm. It's just not worth it, and it's too costly. But sometimes you have no choice. So I don't want to mislead the people. Sometimes you absolutely have no choice. You have substantial assets where one spouse doesn't want to give it up, or there's no agreement on custody. I've seen this often where the husband says, okay, you can have custody of the children, but I'm only going to pay you $200 a month in child support. Well, that's nonsense. As you know, it's based on the income of the parents. You have to, if it's one child, it's 17%. And so our program creates all that. So we charge extra if you have to have a stipulation of settlement with property. I don't want to mislead the public, because it gets very convoluted. If you need a stipulation of settlement to dispose of property, so that there can be extra charges. But in addition to that, and I see that people go on to LegalZoom a lot, they prepare the paperwork. They don't get it. You prepare the paperwork, good luck taking it to court, good luck doing the follow-up on it, and they've already charged you for their services. We are responsible for the entire process, and we form corporations at prices that are competitive with any service out there, and we do tons of bankruptcies as well. So I'm proud of the service we provide to the inner city folks.
Well, Herb, I'm going to tell you are a bona fide lawyer, because you definitely sold your case there. Herb Cabrera, thanks so much for being with us here on Open. Glad to have you and talking about this particular topic.
What a pleasure to appear on your show, and stay safe, and may God bless you.
God bless you too. All righty. Well, listen, as he said, he doesn't want to self-promote, so we'll self-promote for him and give more information. Go ahead and give him a call or visit the website at GoNewYorkLaw.com or reach him on phone 718-439. Let me say it again, 718-439-3600. I want to let you know we come to the end of our show today. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us, and most of all, you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the recablecast on BronxNet Channel 67. If you have Verizon Files, that'd be Channel 2133, or anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. Now, if you also want to get a brand new episode of Open, come on back on Friday. My girl, Rena Valentine, will bring you the best of arts and entertainment. Until then, I am Daren Jaime for this Wednesday Open, saying take care, God bless, and most of all, keep this channel wide open.